Before streaming, before jump scares, before anyone worried about spoiler warnings, horror lived inside the television. The 1970s and early 80s delivered nightmares that walked straight into your living room. They were eerie, atmospheric, and far better than anyone expected them to be. From haunted farmhouses and telekinetic teens to phone calls from beyond the grave, these are 10 classic TV horror movies that still hold up today. The end doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it boards a flight. Released in 1973 and directed by David Lowell Rich, the horror at 37,000 feet takes supernatural terror to the skies, long before Event Horizon or the Langoliers turned air travel into panic. It's a CBS made-for-TV nightmare with a deliriously strange premise, an ancient druidic curse unleashed mid-flight. A wealthy couple transports the remains of a desecrated English abbey to America, sealed in the cargo hold. But as the plane rises into the clouds, something down below starts to stir. Among the passengers is William Shatner, giving one of his most unhinged post-Star Trek performances, a priest who's lost his faith, forced to confront real darkness at 37,000 feet. What makes the horror at 37,000 feet unforgettable isn't just the absurdity, it's the mood. The airplane becomes a floating tomb, cramped aisles, flickering lights, and the drone of engines humming like a heartbeat that never slows. Every bump of turbulence feels alive, every shadow holds a secret. It's campy, eerie, and completely sincere, the kind of weird, late-night horror TV wasn't afraid to make. Released in 1973 and directed by Gordon Hessler, Scream! Pretty Peggy is one of those made-for-TV thrillers that creeps up on you. Elegant on the surface, quietly deranged underneath. It's part psycho, part Rebecca, and all atmosphere. Betty Davis headlines the film, sharp and watchful as always, playing Mrs. Elliot, the aging housekeeper of a sculptor with a tragic past. When college art student Peggy Johns, played by Sion Barbara Allen, answers a job ad to work as his assistant, she thinks she's walking into a dream gig. But the mansion is strange. Doors that must stay locked, hallways that echo with footsteps that shouldn't be there, and a sister everyone insists is away, though you can hear her crying at night. Ted Bessel, better known for sitcom charm, surprises here as the tortured artist haunted by guilt and family scandal. His performance walks a fine line between sympathy and suspicion. You never quite know if he's protecting Peggy or luring her in. Hessler directs it like a stage play soaked in dread. Slow pans through corridors. There's nothing supernatural here, but it feels haunted, every secret pressing against the walls. When the truth finally reveals itself, it's pure 1970s gothic tragedy. Stylish, sad, and a little unhinged. The twist isn't just clever, it's cruel. The kind of ending that leaves you staring at the screen in silence. Scream. Pretty Peggy captures what TV horror of that era did best. Terror dressed up as domestic drama, with just enough madness to make you doubt what you saw. Proof that sometimes the scariest houses don't hide monsters. They hide the people who never left. Every town has a girl they whisper about. The one who doesn't fit. The one who watches instead of smiles. Released in 1977 and directed by Lee Phillips, The Spell is one of television's most haunting echoes of Carrie. A story of loneliness, cruelty, and quiet power awakening in the wrong hands. Susan Meyer stars as Rita, a teenager tormented by her classmates and ignored by her family. She's overweight, awkward, invisible, until something inside her begins to move. Something that listens, something that answers back. At first, it's small things, but soon the anger festers, and Rita's powers become a mirror of her pain. What starts as revenge turns into a spiral of destruction that no one, not even her mother, can stop. Lee Grant, as Rita's mother, grounds the story in heartbreak. You can feel the love and the guilt tearing her apart, the way every parent wonders if they missed the moment when something went wrong. Myers plays Rita with a mix of fragility and menace that feels painfully real. You don't root for her exactly. You recognize her. The spell isn't about buckets of blood or flying furniture. It's about the cruelty that grows in silence, and the power that comes when silence finally breaks. The horror isn't supernatural, it's emotional. A child ignored for too long becomes a weapon no one saw coming. It's soft, sad, and chilling all at once. A reminder that monsters aren't always born. Sometimes they're made one cruel word at a time. It starts with a ring, a sound so ordinary, so harmless, until the voice on the other end says your name. Released in 1972 and directed by Philip Leacock, When Michael Calls is one of those haunting little TV movies that crawls under your skin and stays there. The story follows Helen, who suddenly begins receiving late-night calls from a child claiming to be her nephew Michael, the same boy who died years ago in a tragic accident. The voice is small, frightened, pleading, the kind of voice that makes you listen even when you shouldn't. At first, everyone thinks it's a prank, but as the calls keep coming, people around Helen start to die in accidents that don't make sense. And the line between haunting and madness starts to blur. Elizabeth Ashley gives the performance of her career, fragile, exhausted, and barely holding on. You can see the grief etched into her face, the part of her that wants to believe the impossible. Michael Douglas, young and skeptical, watches it all unravel from the sidelines, powerless to stop it. Leacock directs with restraint. No flashing lights, no jump scares, just the quiet dread of the phone that won't stop ringing. When Michael calls his horror built from guilt and longing, it's about how grief answers back when you refuse to let it rest. The voice on the phone doesn't need to shout to be terrifying. It just needs to sound like someone you miss. Proof that the most chilling hauntings don't come from the grave. They come from the ones who can't stop listening. Released in 1974 and directed by Burt Kennedy, All the Kind Strangers is one of those TV movies that sneaks up on you. It doesn't look like horror at first, just a quiet story about a traveler who takes the wrong turn, but by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. Stacy Keach plays John, a man whose curiosity and decency lead him deep into the woods to a lonely farmhouse where the boy lives with his many brothers and sisters. They're polite, they're sweet, and they're wrong. There are no parents, no neighbors, no one for miles. Just a group of children who smile too much and speak too softly, asking questions that sound more like rehearsed lines than conversation. Before long, John realizes the truth. These kids have been luring strangers here for years, forcing them to play mother or father. And once you're chosen, you don't leave. Samantha Egger plays another captive. Brittle, weary, her eyes hollow from hope gone stale. She's what happens when kindness runs out and survival takes its place. Kennedy directs with deceptive calm. Every frame feels off-kilter, like a dream you can't quite wake from. It's the politeness that chills you, the way the children smile while planning your replacement. All the Kind Strangers is less about violence than violation, about how good intentions can lead you straight into danger. There's no blood, no ghosts, just loneliness turned feral, innocence turned inside out. It's horror built from politeness and desperation, proof that sometimes the scariest thing isn't cruelty, it's kindness with conditions. Family gatherings can be murder, especially when no one wants to be there. Released in 1972 and directed by John Llewellyn Moxey, Home for the Holidays is a rainy little gem from television's golden age of horror. Part family drama, part storm-soaked thriller, and all claustrophobic dread. The story opens on Christmas Eve. Four estranged sisters return to their childhood home, a sprawling country estate that doesn't feel like home anymore. Their father is dying, bitter and bedridden, and convinced that his much younger second wife is poisoning him. What follows isn't just a whodunit. It's a slow, cruel unraveling of old wounds and long-held grudges. The sisters don't trust each other, the father doesn't trust anyone, and before the night is over, someone in the house will stop breathing. Moxey, the same director who gave us The Night Stalker, knows exactly how to make small spaces feel suffocating. The camera lingers on dripping windows and dark hallways, on faces half lit by candlelight. It feels like you're trapped in that house with them, listening to every accusation echo through the storm. The cast is incredible. Sally Field, still early in her career, plays the most grounded of the sisters, caught between logic and fear. Julie Harris, as the accused stepmother, plays her role with unnerving calm, every line balancing between guilt and innocence. There are no jump scares, no gore, just suspicion, secrets, and rain pounding on the roof like a countdown. Every argument sounds like a confession, and every glance could be a goodbye. Home for the Holidays takes something warm, the promise of family, and twists it until it bleeds. It's proof that you don't need a monster when resentment's already in the house. Released in 1972 and directed by a very young Steven Spielberg, Something Evil is one of the great curiosities of made-for-TV horror. A quiet, unnerving ghost story that whispers instead of screams. You can already feel Spielberg's touch here. The eye for tension, the way ordinary moments start to feel off, and how love itself becomes part of the haunting. Sandy Dennis stars as Marjorie Worden, a mother who moves with her husband and children from the city to an old Pennsylvania farmhouse. It's supposed to be peaceful. Wide fields, fresh air, space to breathe, but something in the barn doesn't want them there. She hears faint laughter, whispers at night. It's the kind of evil that never announces itself. It just settles in quietly, waiting for you to notice. Spielberg turns the countryside into a dream, or maybe a warning. Shadows shift just a little too slowly. Even sunlight feels haunted. Dennis gives a beautifully fragile performance. You can feel her slipping between reality and paranoia, trying to hold her family together while doubting her own sanity. There's no priest, no exorcism, no final showdown. Just a woman staring down the idea that something invisible and cruel has chosen her home. Something evil feels like a rehearsal for Poltergeist, but it's smaller, sadder, and somehow more personal. It's about fear that creeps into the familiar, about how easily a loving home can turn against you. Not every horror story starts in the city. Some begin in the quietest places. Released in 1978 and directed by Leo Penn, The Dark Secret of Harvest Home is one of the crown jewels of made-for-TV horror, a two-part miniseries that pulls folk horror out of misty England and plants it deep in American soil. The story follows a city couple, played by David Aykroyd and Joanna Miles, who move to a sleepy New England village looking for peace, a slower life, and maybe a little redemption. But the people of Cornwall Coombe are different. They're polite, traditional, and bound by rituals that feel ancient, older than Christianity, older than mercy. At the center of it all is Betty Davis, magnificent and menacing as the Widow Fortune, the matriarch who keeps the town's harvest rituals alive. Her every word drips with certainty, the kind that comes from faith turned inside out. Penn directs with the patience of a painter. He lets the dread grow naturally. Sunlit fields, whispering corn. It's all so beautiful it hurts, and that's the point. You're not trapped in darkness here, you're trapped in daylight, surrounded by people who smile while sealing your fate. The Dark Secret of Harvest Home is slow, hypnotic, and unforgettable. It doesn't chase you, it wraps around you like smoke. By the end, you realize the title wasn't lying. This is a secret you were never meant to know. Horror doesn't always come from what's buried in the dark. Sometimes it's what grows right out in the open. Some horror stories end when the credits roll. Others linger, soft, sorrowful, and impossible to shake. Released in 1977 and directed by Dan Curtis, Dead of Night is one of those rare made-for-TV anthologies that feels like it slipped through a dream before it hit the screen. Curtis, the man behind Dark Shadows and The Night Stalker, brings the same gothic melancholy here. 3 stories, 3 worlds, all bound by loss, and the terrible things we do for love. The first tale, Second Chance, follows a man who restores an old car and takes it for a drive, only to find himself cruising straight into the past. It's wistful, eerie, and quietly heartbreaking. The second, No Such Thing as a Vampire, is pure gothic theater. Deception, lust, and blood under candlelight. But it's the final story, Bobby, that stays with you. A mother, played by Joan Hackett, grieving the death of her son, performs a ritual to bring him back, and he does come back, small, trembling, and calling her name. But what she's brought home isn't a child. It's something wearing his skin. Curtis directs with that painterly precision only he had, candlelight glinting off mirrors, every scene soaked in sadness. The performances are tender, never campy. Every scream feels earned. Even the silence feels heavy, like it's been waiting years to speak. Dead of Night isn't a horror movie you watch for shocks. It's one you feel. It's grief dressed as ghost story, heartbreak hiding under gothic lace. By the time it ends, you're not scared. You're haunted. Every generation has a Halloween night they never forget. For some, it's the one where the dead came back, and everyone was too busy dancing to notice. Released in 1985 and directed by Jack Bender, The Midnight Hour is pure television magic. Part spooky special, part melancholy dream. It's the kind of movie that feels like you half remember it from childhood. Flashes of fog, old costumes, and a song you can't quite name echoing through static. The story follows a group of small-town teenagers who recite an ancient curse, and just like that, the dead rise. Zombies, vampires, ghostly lovers. The whole town wakes up for one last night of mischief and mayhem. It should be ridiculous, but somehow it isn't. Bender directs it with the charm of an old pop video and the sincerity of a bedtime story. Shari Belafonte, LeVar Burton, and Lee Montgomery lead the cast with warmth and humor, giving the chaos an unexpected heart. What sets The Midnight Hour apart isn't the scares, it's the feeling. It's wistful, almost romantic, like the movie itself knows Halloween can't last forever. Underneath the camp and color is a longing for something you can't name, that one night of magic you keep trying to relive. The soundtrack hums with that same ache, part thriller, part dream. Every song feels like it's playing from a distant radio you can't quite tune in. The Midnight Hour is fun, strange, and quietly beautiful. A love letter to Halloween before it became a marketing season. Proof that the scariest thing about growing up is realizing the ghosts were memories all along. And there you have it, 10 eerie, unforgettable tales from the golden age of television horror. These weren't blockbusters or midnight slashers, they were smaller, stranger things. These films proved you didn't need a theater for horror to find you. If you made it this far, you're one of the brave ones, or at least one of the curious. Which of these forgotten television terrors have you seen? And which one are you daring to revisit when the clock hits midnight? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, so you'll never miss the next descent into cinematic darkness. Because some horror never dies. It just waits for a chance to be rediscovered.